Hello and welcome back to the Fat Dad Fishing Show. I'm your host, Rich Natoli, and we do this show because nothing says responsible adult like a $400 fishing rod, $700 reel, and unpaid taxes. Tonight, I'm really excited about this one because we're going to be joined by John Skinner, truly an absolute legend in the fishing community for saltwater all up and down the coast, fishing in Florida now too. And we're going to go into, look, as deep as a dive as we can during a normal conversation about fluke fishing, striper, any questions that you have for those that are on the live stream, make sure you put those in chat. I will do my best to bring them on. This is really about getting as much information out there and getting to know John a little bit more than we do through the videos and everything. So this is the chance to do that. I'm really excited about that. So put any questions, anything that you have in there, and I'll do my best to keep up with it. If you are here for the first time, thank you for checking out the show. Just want to say, hey, if you enjoy it, hit the follow, leave a review. It really helps us grow the podcast, helps us to get people to agree to come on as guests as well. So let's hit the sponsors real quick, and then we're not going to delay. We'll bring John right on. Sponsors for this show: Great Bay Outfitters in Tuckerton, New Jersey. If you're kayak fishing and you're anywhere near the saltwater, anywhere near Tuckerton, you need to swing by, see Paul, see the guys at the shop. If you need anything Old Town, any parts, native, he's got it. It's the shop that I go to. I say this every week, but it is literally the shop that I go to. It's worth the drive for me to go there because of the service, the selection, all of that good stuff. So make sure that you check them out. Radio Road in Tuckerton. Quad State Tune. If you have a Dodge truck, it's gear seeking as you're heading down the road. You're towing a boat, which a lot of you do. If you're towing a boat, want a little bit better performance out of it, check out Quad State Tune. Contact Kevin Driscoll. It was in the bumper, but just so that you know, it's 484-633-5975. Kevin will get you set up with that. It'll totally solve that gear seeking issue. And then for real estate, Southeastern Pennsylvania, me as a realtor, buy, sell, and invest, give me a call, 267-270-1145. Happy to help you out. And if you're not in Southeastern New Jersey, I do have a pretty good referral network that I can give you some options. New Jersey, I have a ton of people. Delaware, all the way up and down the coast. So I think I now literally have every state except for Maine covered on the East Coast. So that's it. We're going to dive right in. We're going to bring John onto the screen right now. John, welcome to the stream. Good to see you.
Oh, thanks for having me, Rich.
Yeah, I was trying not to be too much of a fanboy in the backstage area before we started. There are certain people that you really want to talk to, and the people that watch this and listen to the podcast, actually more people listen to the podcast than watch this, a lot more than watch the stream. But the feedback that I get is always when I say, who should we bring on? You're literally number one every single time. So it's got to say something about you're doing something right.
I hope so.
Yeah, I will say so. And fluke and striped bass are definitely the two most popular topics for this audience, both by the boat, offshore, inshore, back bays, surf fishing, all that. And you pretty well cover all of it, ocean fishing all the way, to the surf and to the land base. So I think it'll be a good conversation.
Okay.
All right. So I want to start now. It's not going to be an interview, but I want to start off with a couple of things. First of all, I do want to start with fluke fishing because that's what the season is right now. Yes, people are still fishing for striped bass. They're still having some success up and down the coast, some areas better than others, but fluke really takes over at this time of year. How has your season been this year as compared to other seasons?
Very inconsistent. It depends on the body of water. So, all right. So Peconic Bay, which is for people who don't know the area, there, the water between the South Fork and the North Fork, that area, terrible, horrible, as bad as I've seen it. Long Island Sound, pretty good. Actually, quite good. Not quite to the standards of maybe 8 or 10 years ago and earlier, but certainly it was better than last year, and last year was definitely better than the 3 previous years. So that was good. The ocean fluking off of Montauk it was a much better June than last year. Now it's gotten very, very inconsistent and a lot of smaller fish. And overall, um, the size isn't there. And the size wasn't there last year. I mean, last year was tough. And this year is, I think, maybe even tougher for size. So, and by size, I mean, look, it used to be, even just a couple of years ago, every time we'd go out, we're going to get at least 1 7-pounder. I mean, at least. If that's,
Right.
if we only got one, well, a friend of mine, 4 trips in a row, they had a double digit. I mean, that's how good it was. And every year I'd get a few double digits. And then last year, boy, I probably broke 7 pounds, but not by much. And I have one about that size this year. And even the normal keepers, we're getting in the ocean. A lot of the keepers are like 20, 21 inches, because like you might as well fish in the bay,
Right.
which is, that's funny I say that, because tomorrow we're going to fish and we're going to bay fish instead of ocean fish, because the ocean fishing today was perhaps the worst trip I've been on ever.
Yeah.
I mean, look, when you put 100 miles on the boat and you got 4 guys, and the guys that we had fishing, they clearly knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Despite being from New Jersey and everything, and calling the fish flounder. I mean, we try, but I'm only kidding, of course. Yeah. So anyway, one keeper, it really truly was perhaps the worst trip I've seen. Now contrast that with last Wednesday. Anybody who was out there last Wednesday killed them. Same areas, good conditions. So it's been up and down like that. However, the bay fishing, not great. And I'm talking about the South Shore bays.
Right.
Not great, but we're going to bay fish tomorrow. So yeah, it's okay. It's been, when I've gone there, it's been pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. It gives you an indication. I mean, when you're choosing the bay over the ocean, it kind of it says a lot, right?
Well, we should never make. I mean, that the decision is usually made based on weather.
Right.
In fact, we would never even consider going to the bay as opposed to the ocean, except that we put 100 miles on the boat for one keeper today. Are we going to go and run that play again tomorrow? No, no, not when we've been successful and we have a good tide on the bay. So we're going to do that.
Yeah, it's funny. So we actually have in the chat Kai Ackerman. So Kai and Billy Ackerman, they're driving back from that trip. And Kai says hello, hasn't seen you in a while. So he wanted to say hi.
Yeah, a couple hours. Yeah.
And Kai was the one with the keeper, is my understanding. So well done, Kai. But yeah, I mean, it says a lot, because it's pretty rare that if at this time of year, especially, that you're choosing the bay over the ocean. I mean, it's just not standard the way that it has been, for the past couple of decades.
Right. Well, it's but on the other hand, we were on the water 9 hours today. I mean, we probably fished 6 of that. 4 guys in the water. It's torture.
Yeah. That's a lot.
I hate to call fishing torture, but my goodness, and we didn't see a fish come up on anybody's boat. It's not like we weren't doing well. We had friends out, and they only had 2 keepers, and they got that pretty late. So yeah, it's but the more troublesome thing is that even the last 2 previous days, I was not out, but my friend was out. He had charters and small fish. I mean, they had some keepers, but they're 20, 21 inches. They're not. Those are, we used to call Montauk keepers, where those are 24-inch fish. Standard 5-pound, 24-inch fish. That's a Montauk keeper. It's nothing special. Now we're hustling for the net. We see a 24-incher in the water.
Yeah, and I have noticed in your videos this year, you're measuring a lot more fish.
Oh yeah. Well, we'd like to go.
You didn't used to have to do that.
Yeah. That's right. Oh yeah, you just look at them. Yeah.
Yep.
And we didn't used to catch so many shorts. So my friend, the John Halkey, the charter captain, he said they had between 60 and 70 shorts yesterday, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, I'm going to be heading out this week, so hopefully I'm not on the 60 or 70 shorts. But here's a question for you. Actually, I was going to ask this, but Carl Ward jumped into the chat and he said, well, what's the best way to single out the bigger fluke when you're heading out? What are you specifically looking for in an area?
Boy, that's a tough one.
Well, let's pretend it wasn't
Oh,
based on today. Just generally
okay.
speaking, the general answer to that.
Okay. So, the only time I'm going to leave fish to find bigger ones is if I'm not even getting close to, all right, so our limit is 19 inches.
Hmm.
If the fish are all coming up 14, 16 inches, I'm thinking real serious about moving from that and trying to find something bigger. But if we're coming close, if we're seeing good number of 18s in there, I'm gonna just adjust the drift. We'll go up a little farther, go back a little more, go to the side, because a lot of times these keepers, they're in pockets.
Right.
We saw that in Shinnecock Bay last week. we with three keepers on a short drift. At one point, we had to net two of them at the same time, and they were bigger than the fish we'd caught on the previous ocean trip, which is nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I have found, I don't know if it's true or not, but I believe that they kind of run in packs in certain spots, right? So if one spot is dominated by a small fish, there's no big fish there, because the big fish, the best spots, the big fish are kind of moving the little fish away to the sides. So they kind of congregate together by size, at least in the backwaters. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that's so much true for the ocean, because there's so much more expanse, less condensed areas for them to be in. But I do find that in the backwaters, if I'm catching a lot of 18 in New Jersey is the keeper size. If I'm catching 15s, I'm probably off the spot, and I'll just pick up and move right away. I don't tend to pull a 24 out next to a 15. It just doesn't happen.
We do. In fact, the two bay trips ago, I had just made the comment. I pulled a couple like 10, 12 inches. I mean, tiny. And I said, "Oh my goodness!" And we had just like slid over to this. We're a couple 100 feet away from where we were, but we slid over to this spot, and it was a little shallower. And I got a couple of 10, 12 inches. I said, "Oh my goodness, these are small." And but let's keep the drift going. And then the next fish was 25.5 inches. And this is in the bay, 6 feet of water. So we do mix them up. It's just that if you're on there for some period of time and it's all smalls, then I'm thinking about trying somewhere else. Yeah.
Right. I see it's easy for me to move because I'm only talking kayak. So moving for me is maybe a 15-second pedal off to the side of the channel.
Right. Now I fish that same area. I'm laughing because you have to think about the penalty to move. Because I fish the same area, the Old Town, the autopilot, and I don't run that at 10. I'll run it up to 9.5 just because I do. And it's like 3.5 miles an hour. But if you're running into current, now you're down to 2.5, maybe less. You got to really think about what it's going to cost you to make a real move. Right. But I always seem to do well working that kayak in the bays. I think it makes me thoroughly work an area that I know is good, and by not running all over the place, it always seems to pan out for me.
I seem to be a better fluke fisherman in a kayak than when I was in my boat. I think I just got lazy, and I talk about it on here a lot, that we tend to get lazy just because it's an easier drift, or we'll just drift this real quick, but we won't redrift it moving over a little bit. But when you're in a kayak and it's going to take you half an hour to move, you're going to hit that area. You're going to make sure you get every little ridge underneath you, every little
you're more thorough. Definitely more thorough.
Yeah. And you honestly, you can, unless you're really good on that trolling motor and you have a boat that performs well with it, I can hit the little pockets a lot easier than a boat can. I can get over it and I can just pedal really lightly. I can change everything really quick, and you don't necessarily have that luxury on a boat.
Yeah, I like the autopilot kayak, the Old Town. That thing is just ridiculous for Fluke. I mean, it's just you can tune that in so well, and it is your means of propulsion. You're not pedaling. So I'm, one hand's got that remote, and the other hand's got the rod, and I'm continuously, tweaking the speed, tweaking the direction, and it's a great craft. The only thing is you got to live with the boat waves.
Yes.
That's probably the biggest consideration when I'm doing that is, hey, a lot of times the Fluke are near channels. In fact, they're almost always near channels, and you know how it can be. So
I'll tell you what, I do get jealous when I see, as soon as you hook into a nice fish and I hear the
Spot
beep.
lock.
Yeah, because I can't do that with the pedals. I think I'm doing it, and then I realize I've
You have
just
too much
drifted.
to think about at
Yeah,
that
I've
point.
drifted
Yeah.
50 yards.
Yeah.
So,
No, and I do the same thing in my boat. I've got my 16.5-foot aluminum trolling motor, and yeah, same exact thing. As soon as I hook up, beep, lock it.
yeah,
This way here, none of the drift is lost, and yeah, that's a wonderful feature.
yeah. Well, I have a spot lock on the horizon because
No,
of that. I'm just getting so tired of just having to go right back up current and then back up current, and you're having a great day, but you spend so much time pedaling back to get to that
that's
spot.
that's right. That's what I was telling my friend the other day. I said, hey, if I'm going into the current at 2.5 miles an hour and I'm drifting back at 1, which is about what it is, so you figure out, third of my trip is, spent going back up on the drift. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
for me it's pedaling because I have to pedal
yeah,
it into the
right,
current to keep that
yeah,
speed the whole time.
yeah,
So
yeah.
getting too old for this, John. Way too old. Do have a question from Joseph Beam. Down here in South Jersey, I've noticed I've caught more and larger flounder on a bucktail with a gulp and no teaser. Do you have any experience with that, or do you just stick with what everyone now calls the Skinner rig,
I didn't
which
know
is
they
the high
called it
low?
that.
Oh yeah, the high
Didn't
low.
Had no idea they called it that. I don't see a downside in a teaser. First of all, I don't think fluke are very sophisticated fish. I think they're downright stupid at times. In fact, I think it was Kai that was telling me today about having fought a fluke to the surface, and it got off, and he just threw the thing back at him, and the fish went and grabbed it again. I've got them on video with a hook protector, underwater video, and there's a hook protector, and the thing comes out of the fluke's mouth 6-7 times, and it's attached to a camera, and the thing is hitting it over and over. I have a hard time believing that having that extra, basically unweighted gulp offering could ever be a negative. And I've done it both ways, by the way, because when we started bucktailing, we weren't using a teaser. We were just bucktail and gulp. And then once we went to a teaser, it seemed like there was no comparison, and
Yeah.
we never ever went back ever. Yeah.
I've caught more fish on the teaser than on the regular bucktail. I don't know if
And
I'm doing it wrong,
I think
but
that's typical. That's fine if it's like 60-40, but when people tell me, and I hear this often, all my fish come on the teaser. Well,
no,
then
they're
my
dragging.
reaction is something's wrong with your bucktail, and it's too heavy, because then
Yeah.
it acts like a rock. It doesn't look good. You got to make some adjustment if you're not catching them on the
Right. It's
bucktail.
just dragging the bottom or something like that, which is another thing that when
Yeah.
you're jigging, so you have this crazy fast jig, right? That you're just constantly up and down on this. Oh, I've always wondered, are you hitting the bottom, or are you pulling it right off the bottom and you're trying to get close to it hitting the bottom on the downswing?
Close to the bottom, not trying to hit the
You're
bottom.
not pounding
I
the
mean, I'm
bottom.
dropping to the bottom to make sure I'm there. But
Yeah.
then, and the underwater video I've got shows it beautifully, that the rig is, maybe, anywhere from 6 inches to a foot. Maybe if it's 2 feet off the bottom, probably I'm going to feel for bottom again. But it's in that range within the first 2 feet of bottom, and not bouncing on the bottom. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we've had a lot of debates on the water about that. And the thing was, well, in the videos, the underwater videos, you're not trying to catch those fish. So maybe it's just easier so you don't get snagged. And then
Oh
other
no,
people are
that's
like,
no,
oh
no,
no.
no, 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 no. It was very difficult to get underwater video of a bouncing gulp rig. You can't attach the camera to that because it's going to jerk all over the place.
Right.
So I had quite a contraption that was able to video the gulp rig, and I was fishing. I was trying to catch fluke.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where it is. The rig's up off the bottom for sure. Yeah. The
All
only
right.
thing the hook protector was on, that when I would, you can drag like a strip bait or something to see what the fluke do with that, but you can't jig it because you're going to mess up the video. And I would have a hook protector on that because I don't really want to catch the fish on that.
Right.
And that's where I'd get to see him grab it and come out of its mouth and grab it over and over again.
Right. Well, I look at some of those videos and I think, oh my God, if I would just get into fish that size, I would just want to catch it. There's a different areas that you're
Yeah.
trolling for those than I'm fishing.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's very, very cool to come home and throw that card in the computer and go, holy smokes, look at this. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's amazing how, when they're sitting on the bottom, you don't even see them until they pop up behind it.
Yeah, sometimes. But I also saw in the video, I mean, I've got a lot of video going back some time. You see instances where they're just swimming too off the bottom. They're
Yeah.
not all sitting there. But one of my favorite clips is off of Montauk. There's these two rocks that are like a couple feet apart, and it looks like there's nothing but sand between them. And as I go by with the rig, all of a sudden that bottom just rises up, and there's a true doormat was just between those two rocks, and then comes up on the bait. It's just so neat to see that. Yeah.
Yeah. You had one underwater video where it seemed like it was all doormats. It was amazing to me. I don't know where they were coming from, but because usually you see a whole bunch of what looked like maybe 16 to 18s, but this looked like there were like 22 pluses, like all over.
Oh, they were, and they were. No, that was, I know when that was. And that was a time I happened to collect video on the clearest Long Island Sound water I have ever fished in. I mean, 17 feet of water, I could see my rig on the bottom, and that is not as unheard of.
Yeah.
And that happened to be the day, and that was the day I was able to then get the bouncing video rig. I'm sorry, the gulp rig in the frame along with the strip bait at the same time to watch
Perfect.
the Fluke come in and decide which. There's no decision. That bouncing gulp rig, just like a magnet, it had no interest in fresh meat, none. Every fish went right at that. You'd have 3 Fluke chasing after that bouncing rig, and they would swim right by the fresh meat. That was just
Really?
unbelievable to see.
Now,
Unbelievable.
do you think that the gulp has changed at all? Do you think it's becoming less of a?
No.
Do you think it's the same?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I've actually gotten to meet, like, there's 2 guys that were involved with that. One is still with Berkeley, and I got to spend some time with him. I think it was like last winter. And yeah, and I asked him, yes, hey, people complain, oh, it got softer. He goes, no, he goes, it's like making cookies. You make batches of cookies and they don't all come out the same. He said some, and he said gulp is the same way. Some batches come out a little softer, some come out a little firmer. He said there's no intention to mess up a good thing. And yeah, so there's
That's
really no
interesting.
change. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember that I had some. I think there were sand eel gulp that I was using, and they were like sticks. They were so hard, and I said, well, I must have just been old bait or something, which doesn't make sense because
Maybe the
gulp
juice
can last
wasn't, maybe
100
the juice
years.
dried up or something.
Yeah, but it sounds right because there were other people that came on the show that said, no, I actually love those. I was like, well, I'm just going to chalk it up to a bad batch then. So maybe I will go out and get sand eels.
Oh
again and
no,
give it a
yeah,
try.
no, that I've not. I've got sand eels, and yeah, they're fine. Yeah.
All right. So here's a question for you. This is from Don Mace. I know Don, and how do you know for certain you're drifting with the current when you're out in the ocean? Because that is always a challenge when you get into some of these areas. Because look, some of the best fluke spots, you're going to have a lot of structure, a lot of different currents going different ways. The wind's not going to behave. What are you doing to figure out if you're going with the current?
Okay, so that's a great question. That's a problem that we run into. Montauk and Block, I call them squirrely currents. They're not. It's not like Long Island Sound. Long Island Sound is pretty boring. The water goes one way, goes the other way, it goes back and
Yep.
forth. No interesting part of that whatsoever. But out like Montauk, in the deeper water, you've got the top current moving different from the bottom current, and it could have to do with recent winds, lots of things. All right, so the answer is, well, you need a trolling motor. So what you do is you spot lock, and you drop a rig down, the same kind of rig that you're using, and then you just look at the angle of the line, and you see which way that rig is being pulled, and that is the bottom current, because the trolling motor is taking care of the top current for you and keeping the boat steady. And then you look to see which way the rig's getting pulled. That becomes your trolling direction. You troll in that direction. And oh my goodness, what a difference that can make. like a light switch sometimes, because otherwise, your baits are going down, your rigs are going down down current backwards, and
Right.
or in strange ways. Sometimes you set the hook, but you see it when you snag bottom, and instead of bottom pulling away from you, the bottom is going under the boat, and it's like,
Yes.
how can this even be? I've got a wind in my face, I snag, and yet the line's going on. That's because, yeah, you've got to kind of fix that drift with the trolling motor. And yeah, when I first used a trolling motor, I thought, like, oh, here's a device of last resort when it's wind against current or something, and then you get used to using it, and you get spoiled because now every drift can be perfect.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Even in a kayak, I end up with that sometimes because I don't have a trolling motor, and you'll be fishing, and all of a sudden you're like, "How the hell did I get snagged?" It's literally on the other side of the kayak. I was fishing off the right, and now it's on the left.
Mhm.
But I thought it was like 20 yards in front of me, and it's behind. So I
Yeah.
wonder why I'm getting snagged, and not feeling the bottom right, and then all of a sudden I just pick something up. That is a good question, and that's something
Yeah.
that. Look, I've never had a boat with a trolling motor on it, so I never was able to do that. And some of the most frustrating days on the water is when you're stuck out there and you don't know what the hell's going on underneath you. You think you're good, and then all of a sudden you realize, no, I just spent the last half an hour and I'm not even going the right way, and I should have had it in gear or popping it in and out or something like that.
Yeah, we had a Block Island was like 2 seasons ago. We were just not doing well, and we could tell something wasn't right. So we spot locked, we determined the direction, and we went, and we were surprised at how it was really running. And so we used a trolling motor to do it the right way. And then I got a 10-pounder, and I got an 8-pounder. I got a 10 and 8 and a 7 on the same run after we were just starving. And all it took was using the trolling motor to go in the correct direction, because those currents at Block, it's a lot like Montauk. They can be quite strange, especially in the deeper water.
Yeah, I mean, you got the deep water and just odd structure. I mean, well, Block is a little different because you have you've got a lot of things working in that area on a macro level. You have you have the island, then you have this crazy structure underneath, and then you have the all of the Long Island Sound and everything letting out all that volume of water.
Yeah.
So it kind of swirls. It's kind of similar to, if you're a South Jersey guy, to down near the Delaware Bay. Only my understanding is it's a lot more dramatic up at Block than it is down in
well, I haven't been down
Delaware
there, so
Bay.
I can't compare. But
No, you were never down. You never fished off of Cape May,
oh,
New
goodness,
Jersey,
no.
for striped bass?
Yeah, no. I'm not going to travel like that for fish that I have. Like, have you ever driven from Eastern Long Island to New Jersey? Yeah, it's not a good time.
No,
Yeah,
I know.
I want to avoid that as much as
Yeah.
possible. Yeah, bridges and tunnels and, ugh, yeah, I've got plenty to do around here without doing that.
Back in the day, the rips at Cape May was just legendary. Now it's better up in what am I thinking? The Bay, up north. It's much better up there, but it used to be the rips down south, and now the rips, you can catch only a few fish. It used to be just huge fish going through there all the time. Boats sank every year. It was so packed, and they were just getting hit by the rips wrong. But talk about crazy currents down there. But yeah, it's pretty much Raritan. I don't know why I couldn't say Raritan Bay. It's been way too long since I've been on the Raritan, I guess, is the issue. So let's talk a little bit about striped bass, because look, you wrote the book on that too, right? I mean, you're fishing for some of my favorite videos of yours actually was when you were fishing. I guess you were fishing the Sound from shore, and you were just picking off the striped bass right from shore. Are you fishing for them at all at this time of year, or are you just kind of moving on?
So a slight look of disgust on my face is that if you'd asked me that question 2 years ago, I would have said no, and I would have just been lying to you intentionally so that nobody else did it. Now I'm saying no because there's no fish, and I know there's no fish because a friend of mine it continues to work it really hard, and it's not happening. And I've tried a couple of times, and it's not happening. And we're like, literally texting back and forth trying to figure out what the hell is going on, because it's not even what I consider background fish. I mean, to me, under normal circumstances, if you pick some beach on Long Island Sound and you put in some big effort of casting, pencils and then fishing eels, and if you put it, you're gonna get a stray passing by or something. You're gonna get something, and that's not even happening. And that's and then even the good spots that we know are good aren't holding fish right now. So yeah,
it's been tough. I mean, nobody fishes harder than a land-based striped bass fisherman in the summer.
And I have very similar reports from New England as well, like reports where the person giving me the report is well known and said, don't disseminate, and then gave me numbers of his network about how bad it really is. And yeah.
Do you think that's a population thing, or do you think it's just a migration change or habitat change?
Migration. And the reason I say that is last year, Plum Gut's the water between Orient Point and Plum Island. Yep. If you watch my boat videos, it's it's a lot of fun for me in the spring, early summer, loaded with fish. And the fall is another time where it's just a great area. There were no bass in the Gut last fall. Now that's just really quite unheard of, but there were basically no bass in the Gut in the last fall. That's a migration issue.
Yeah. I mean, because they're still there. I mean, you see the pictures. People are still catching the big ones, but they're not catching them where they used to.
Bingo.
I mean, that's like I just said, the Cape May rips are dead. It's still fish there, but not like it used to be, where you could walk across them for miles. And South Jersey, I used to be able to fish, John, in the back in my boat and just anchor up in a back channel in the sod banks and just bail fish. So many fish, you'd have to take all the rods out of the water. You could wait hours, have a drink, have lunch, hang out with your buddies, and then just start 2 hours later. And it's still, as soon as it hits the water, you can't fish 2 rods. It's just
nice,
bailing.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
Well, and if it does, people aren't telling me, because I can't make it happen again.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I don't. There's not a lot of secrets out there because they get disseminated pretty quick. Look, no, there's secrets for sure, but it's a lot harder for them to be kept nowadays with all the quick communications and social media and everything else. So,
yeah. So if you were fishing for striped bass, let's say in the fall, is there a style that you prefer over any other? Are you going top water? Are you out on a boat? Are you in a kayak? Are you on the shore?
I really want to be on the beach.
Yeah.
I really do. On the other hand, I do need to get content. So, and Plum Gut's a lot of fun. So I'll do that, and especially in the spring. In the fall, I really, really want to be on the beach. And normally on the North Fork, we get good runs in the fall. And I've fished the North Fork many, many years. I've got it pretty well down. I can tell. I used to tell people in work, I'm taking off Wednesday. I knew when those fish were going to be on the beach. And and boy, last year it was terrible. So then I ended up fishing the South Shore, going to where I used to spend a lot more time, because we had a sand eel run going on over there. So the question about what I'm going to be using, in the case of a sand eel run, well, I'm not going to be using top water very much in that situation. A lot of people throw diamond jigs. I'm going to be throwing a bucktail as much as possible. There are conditions, because those sand eel runs, the fishing is very good under very rough conditions, and it may be that you need to heave metal to get at them.
Right.
There's a lot of situations where it looks like you need metal, but a bucktail is going to do you a lot better. But so that's the one fishery. I hope that shows up again this fall, because there were a lot of sand eels in Long Island Sound this year. On the North Shore, it's bucktails and pencil poppers for me.
Okay. Now, when you throw a bucktail, are you putting what type of soft plastic? Are you going back with the gulp?
Oh, never for stripers, never gulp. No. actually not soft plastic either. Would be the fat cow jig strips.
Okay.
It used to be pork rind, right?
Yep.
And that went away, and then it went to the otter tails and the fat cow jig strips, and got real used to being able to just leave those on the hooks and put them back in the bag, and hey, they catch just as well as pork rind. And then pork rind has kind of come back, like you can buy it, and I haven't actually bothered to go back to it. Yeah, the other stuff's more convenient. Works just as well.
I mean, if you don't need to.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So okay, so bucktails, man, I haven't been on a sand eel in a long time. A sand eel blitz. Those are something. They seem to be. There's something about hooking them a little deeper that I really like. You get that really big takeoff on them.
Well, the thing with the sand eel runs I like is that they stay around. I mean, if usually they start in the beginning of October for us, and then they're going to go like till mid-November. I mean, you're going to get like some time. You're going to get at least a month out of these sand eel runs normally. The problem is they don't happen very often. I can think back like 2014, or was it 13? I think it was 2013. It was a super year, super sand eel run. This past year was good, and it had bigger fish than normal sand eel run. The other thing is it's not run and gun fishing.
Right.
The bunker runs up and down the beach and people chase them. There's no chasing. They set up on these sand eels are on structure, and you figure out the structure, and you don't have to move all over the place. In fact, it doesn't make sense to. The other thing is it's a 24-hour fishery. The fishing could be it's great at night. It could be great during the day. 1 o'clock in the afternoon could be as good as daybreak. So that's a cool thing. So there's a lot of upsides to having a sand eel run for sure.
Now, do you do a lot of like overnight fishing? Like, I mean, like not into the night, but start at 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night when it's
so here's the problem. Fishing, I hate to say it, has become. Well, I need to get content, right? I mean, the content, the YouTube stuff drives everything else. The books, the online courses, rods, and
right.
You name it, right? So there's and you can only do so much. You can't. Oh, the big thing is I can't get content at night because it's dark.
Yep.
I mean that's really the big problem. It's very hard to get any kind of quality night.
Almost impossible.
It basically is impossible because first of all, if you try to fish with a light, it'll shut those bass right off, even in rough surf. And I was able to show that back. Oh my God, it was like 10 years ago or so. It was really cool. I did it with I think it was darters. I'm pretty sure it was darters, and I could get a bite going, and I'm banging them with darters, banging them. And I show that I've got my little red light, get the fish in, unhook it, and then I say, okay, I'm going to light it up and fish. And you put that light on, that's it. And even in rough water, in a bar, white water, boom, that bite is shut right down, done. And then you shut that light off about 20 minutes later, boom, 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 you're banging those fish again. So you can't. It's very, very hard to get night video. And this is so. Take a day like today. I mean, I'm out fluking all day. What am I going to do? Go fishing tonight and try to get video I can't use, or just go fishing. I don't do the night stuff like I used to. I spent decades fishing night, and I would say, start in the dark. Don't even bother until it's dark. I don't mean just after sunset. I mean hour and a half, 2 hours after sunset. Dark. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, that's the best fishing. John, I'll tell you this. So my most hated video I ever did was nighttime striped bass along docks. And it was just because it's too dark. I'm like, yeah, because it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I get it, but you can still see it. No. I got the worst comments on that ever. It's still on the channel somewhere, but people hated me for that. Like I got hate mail for that. I was like, well, I'm sorry I wasted your time. But the point of it was to show fishing dock lights at night for striped bass in the fall can really be productive, and you should have gotten that out of it at least. But it's impossible. Like I don't do I won't even attempt any videos at night anymore because there's just the lens is way too short. You just can't capture enough light in there.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. And actually also the stabilization on the camera doesn't work in low light because it needs things to orient to,
Right.
and you don't have that in low light, so the shake is it's just no good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. But if you had, so do you stand by today? You would still, if somebody says, "Hey, I just need to get on some striped bass," you'd say, "Start fishing at night."
Fish in the dark. Yeah.
Yeah, is the best time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, do you ever have issues where you run into people you don't want to run into at the dark? I think we talked about this on our show last week, where
Describe people I
drunk
don't want to run
people,
into.
assholes, just people that just are, they just don't want
No,
anyone around when they're fishing at night.
yeah, no, that's not an issue for me. Although I've got a book chapter in the very first book, Season on the Edge, where I describe, I was night fishing, and I lived on a road that was perpendicular to the shoreline. You walk down the end of the street, you go down a set of stairs, and you're on Long Island Sound. And there's maybe, I don't know, 30 homes in the neighborhood or whatever it is, and there's actually a gate, a locked gate to get through that. And I was down fishing one night, and I encountered this guy that just scared me. I mean, he not that he threatened me, nothing like that. It was just, there was just something about him. The freaking guy
Yeah.
was scary. And I never in my life, before or after, have I ever left the beach, quit fishing, because I was worried about something. And I went home, and I couldn't figure out, like, how did this guy get down there? So when I got home, I shut the lights off and I watched to see, oh my God, he went up the road. He must live in the neighborhood. And so then I asked around. I found out what his name was. And about 2 weeks later, I'm eating breakfast, and I hear Wading River Police have solved a 5-year-old homicide with the arrest of that
God.
guy. And he had killed somebody, decapitated him in his house, and buried him. He took a jackhammer, tore up his he was in construction, he tore up his garage floor and buried him under his garage. But he made the mistake of his girlfriend knew about it, and then 5 years later she got in trouble and said, "Hey, oh, I know what it was. He hit her or something." And and he or she hit him or some crazy thing like that. And she said, "Hey, guess what?" And she went to the cops. They dug up the garage, and the body was in there, and that was the guy. So pretty good. So I had a pretty good read on this guy. He was a bona fide murderer. And the funniest thing was, a couple years later, my wife and I are walking down the street, and here's this young couple pushing a baby stroller, and didn't recognize him, and they recognized me, and they said, "Oh, we just moved into the neighborhood." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Where?" "Oh, up the street, like third or fourth house in the ranch." I'm thinking, "Oh." I said, "Oh, that's interesting." I said, and he told me how much he liked the book, and I said, "Let me ask you something. How's your garage floor?" And he said, "It's very uneven. Why do you ask?" And I said, "Well, that chapter in the book," I said, "that's your house. That body was underneath your garage floor."
Oh man.
Because when I wrote it in the book, that was the only thing in the book that I didn't do exactly truthfully. I actually said that the body was on the next street over under a guy's patio, but no, it was in my neighborhood, and it was in the guy's garage. And then I met the house. So yeah, so there's my story about
Do they
meeting
live there?
people.
Did they move?
I don't know what happened to them. I think we moved out of that neighborhood not too soon and not too much after that. But yeah, so there's my story about scary people. Yeah, you never know where they're going to be. Yeah.
I haven't really run into anybody that scared me. I've run into a lot of people that were just overly aggressive about stuff. Drunk people.
Yeah, no, I don't have any issues. I typically don't see anybody, and I don't want to be. I mean, when I'm night fishing, when I was especially hardcore night fishing, you're very unlikely to see me, even if you got close. So.
All right, so I got to take a lesson from you. I got to be better about that kind of stuff. I seem to be like a magnet to people when they're leaving the bars and they grab their fishing rods. It seems to be they find me. I need to go to more remote places.
Yeah, and can keep your light off. I always used a pen light with a red lens, and something dim. Just keep it, and sparingly use it. Yeah.
So before you had mentioned that you had tested out the light on the water, I would have said that that really didn't make that big of a deal. But I mean, it doesn't in the
Well,
backwaters, but because you have dock lights all over the place. But I always thought that it was just people going crazy. It's like you
no.
should get mad because you shined a light.
No,
But
and it was great because, I was I know it so normally I wouldn't wanna do that kind of a thing because I don't wanna be I don't wanna be the guy shining the light on the water, right?
right,
So there was, at the time, there was a break in Fire Island, a little west of Smith Point. It was called The Breach. It was on Fire Island National Seashore, and you basically couldn't get to the west side of that. Not You basically couldn't get there. So what I would do in the middle of the night is I'd kayak over there from Smith Point Marina. It was like a mile and 3/4 going across the bay, and you had to be careful about don't get sucked out the breach and all that.
right,
And but once I got over there, I owned it. There was
yeah,
nobody there, so there was no fear that I was going to screw anybody's fishing or anything like that. So I could mess around. And the companion light for my GoPro is like super bright. I mean, I call it like Shea Stadium. I know it's a City Field now, but
yeah,
lights it up like Shea Stadium. And so I was able to do that test. And when that water was ebbing out of the breach, and the white water was out there, oh, the fishing was fantastic. And so I was able to have time with the fish to hook some, try the light, damn, the bite shut off, turn off the light, they come back, try to turn the light on again. And I actually have that video on my channel that I go through that whole thing.
I'm gonna go back and find that. That's interesting. I honestly thought it was just people that they heard it, so they thought it was true, but nobody really knew if it's just like when I was little. I remember a guy. I was fishing a bridge for tog, and I was sitting in a little rowboat, and I was talking to my buddy who was sitting on the other at the other side of it, and this guy just started yelling at us that we're scaring the fish. And I was like, "That's not true. We can talk. No, they're not going to
Oh,
hear us. So it's not going to
talking.
matter."
Yeah.
And yeah, and I honestly I thought that the whole thing was just upset surfcasters about
Well,
the lights on the
and
water.
again, that was just the light on my GoPro, which was a very good light, but it
Yeah.
doesn't compare to headlights on a vehicle,
No.
which is where
No.
this where the problem comes from. That people sweeping the water with their lights. I mean, if you're going to turn your truck around, turn the damn thing around with the lights to the dunes,
Right.
not sweeping them over the water. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
never done that. So I with all that said, I didn't believe it, but I also didn't do it because I didn't want to be that guy.
Plus, I kind of knew that it was a thing anyway from fishing Long Island Sound, in an area where four-wheel drives were allowed, and you'd be on a bite, and then truck would come down the beach with the lights. Now your bite shuts down for 20 minutes, and it comes
Yeah.
back again. Yeah, so
That's no good. That's no good. Here's a question. This is a really good question. I don't know if you can answer this or not, but South
mm.
Jersey yak fishing, cinder worms in the water, and the cinder worms spawn for striped bass. I have gone on record by saying it is the toughest striper bite for me. I've never ever have luck with cinder worms unless I have a cinder worm fly, and then still I have almost zero luck with it. Have you ever fished it, and have you figured out how to do it, or am I just
Oh yeah.
psyching myself
Okay.
out?
All right. So I don't have experience in backwaters, but I have the experience on Long Island Sound beaches because there's actually cinderworm hatches on the beaches themselves, especially
Okay,
up around high slack water. So think about this. Um, when you have cinderworms, there are in the sound, you've got these worms out there. There are nocturnal fish such as eels and things that feed on those worms, and those are things that stripers feed on. So I'll tell you what, my best approach to fishing cinder worms was to throw live eels because
really?
there were already, and I know we had eels from diving. I mean, I would see eels diving, so I
Yeah,
know they're there. Um, eh, you know, so yeah, I would fish. I would live eel cinderworm hatches and do really well because what would happen is when the current got going, they would kind of wipe out But when the current was slow around high slack, that was the period where you'd see them and there would be fish popping, and you throw plugs and teasers and
Nothing.
But throw a live eel out there, and I can only surmise that the cinder worms were attracting the eels that were already there to come out of their holes and the stripers were smart to that. Yeah.
Okay. So that right there, John, is gold. I am so happy that question was asked, because I've never been able to figure that out. 50 years of fishing cinder worms, because we had the cinder worm hatches right next to the house, and I've never ever figured it out. I never thought to do that.
It was probably by accident, but yeah.
Well, that's often how we learn, right?
Yeah.
You get fed up and you try something different.
Yeah.
For me, unfortunately, I never tried live eels. Or even an eel plastic maybe would work too. I've never tried that. Man. Well, thank you, South Jersey yak fishing, for that, because that I just learned something right there. So I'm gonna write that down. All right, let me scan through for pictures. Here's one again. Joseph Beam. Needlefish for sand eel bite. Do you use needlefish patterns or anything for sand eel bite?
Needlefish plugs. So I really like the Super Strikes because they make, how's it go now, 3 different lengths and 7 different weights. I want to say maybe it's 6 different weights. It's something like that. But you can really tune them in like you can a buck. When you go through bucktails, you're using a 3/4, you use a 1. You do fine adjustments with the bucktail weight, and with the Super Strike needles, you can do the same thing, because you could go all the way to that red-eyed 7-inch thing that I think it weighs 3 ounces.
Yeah.
Or you can be down at that, I think it's a 6-inch. That's the regular black-eyed one that I don't know what that weighs, maybe an ounce. So there's a pretty good weight range there. That's a super night plug, but that is not a lure I'm going to be throwing in still water, probably not even backwater unless there's a lot of current. But on the ocean beaches where you've got some white water around the bars, that's a great lure. And it casts so well. If you've got a nor'easter, you got big winds. That's just a really good lure. And I always think of it as a night lure, but I've had some good daytime, or let's say early morning bites on that lure as well.
Yeah. Now, are you changing your approach for summer versus fall? Are you using different sizes or anything like that, or is it?
Well, I'm not out on the open beach in the middle of summer. If I'm gonna fish bass in the summer, I'm just looking for that period around dusk and dawn. I'm gonna throw pencils. I'm not throwing a needlefish at that time. But in the fall, when there's sand eels around, it's a great lure. Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone through quite a few of those. You know what though? They're also really good when you had the blues mixing in.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't end up. They're pretty hardy lures.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of plastic. Sorry about that to the wood guys, but I really like plastic. It's very consistent. They're all the same. They stand up to the bluefish. They don't waterlog. They don't get all chewed. They just go on, and the hooks don't chew the bellies, and you go on and on and on. And, the plastic just holds up. And
yeah. All right. So we're coming up on the hour. I just want to get a couple more in here first. First of all, Billy Ackerman says they just made it home safe. So they listened the whole way home. They're home. They're lamenting Billy, the trip. Yeah. Well, they had a great time anyway. Yeah. Tough day, but hey, it's always worth it. Especially, as Billy was saying, getting out there with his son. It just
he seems like a real good kid. We had good conversations. He's got big plans. Yeah.
He's going to be watching all your Florida content because he's going to be fishing while at school.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. Let's go back to Fluke. What's your favorite setup for ocean fluke as far as the conditions, like time? Let's say I like to put it to people this way when it's this type of question. In the perfect world, if you had to fish one day of the year without knowing anything else, and you could pick all the conditions, the wind, the tide, the moon, the month, the week, whatever, what would you do if I said you have to go out and catch your biggest fluke?
Oh, okay, biggest fluke. That makes it easier.
Biggest.
All right. So then I want to be out on the ocean. I guess and so let's call it Montauk. Wind, tide, moon. So here's the thing that those bites can happen um, on any tide. It really gets to be getting those wind conditions right. All right, give me a sunny day. Give me a
Okay.
light southwest wind. August. Moon. Uh, I don't care as much.
Okay.
Maybe I should, but I don't.
Now, do you not
Um,
care more because of the salooner type of thing, or because the tide strength you don't think really matters that much when you're fishing the ocean?
it matters, but um, I can't say which is better because if you have really strong currents, that can make it a little tough. But in fluke fishing out in the ocean, a lot of times, a 0.5, 0.7 mile an hour drift is just fine. You don't
Yeah.
want to be going along at 1.4, 1.5 or higher. So yeah, let's leave the moon out of it. But August, southwest wind, bright sunny day. Geez, we catch them on both tides when the fishing is good. I think I have a preference for incoming because I'm thinking about places of Montauk where the water direction on a light southwest, you kind of lining up current and wind, so
Right.
that's a nice condition. Yeah. So
Okay. That's a good answer, and I love that you said August,
yeah.
a month that's always overlooked for good fluke fishing. But
Well, that's the ocean now.
yep.
Although we do well in the bay in August as well, because you've got the peanuts are getting bigger, the snappers are there. You've got some high quality baits in August in the backwaters.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about the backwaters in August is I can now drop the sabiki rig from the kayak and I can pull up a spot and I can just stick that on a circle hook and just drop that down. So I can actually, fish a large spot.
Hmm.
And, or I guess you could, I've seen people use bluefish too. I like using spot and just drop that on the hook and you can get some huge ones. And it's funny how small of a fluke you can get on a large bait like that too. It's
Yeah.
amazing to me how
Hmm.
big their mouths get and how they can eat those huge fish when they're only 17 inches and they're eating these things that are half their size.
Interesting. Yeah.
All right, one more question. What's your favorite time of year and species if you're fishing shinnecock?
Hmm. Well, it wouldn't be Shinnecock specifically, but um, West Hampton beaches in October, exactly for the striper run, especially if there's a sand eel run. But um, yeah, that's when you've got good surf fishing in those areas. So I wouldn't be it would be a little west, just slightly west of Shinnecock.
Okay,
More down
close
towards
enough, right?
Mauritius. Yeah,
Close enough. If they're fishing shinnecock, they can make that move.
yeah.
Try to find you.
Last half of October. Yeah.
So when does the run really start there and really get going?
Early October. It depends on the weather. If you
Yeah.
get a nor'easter, you get some storms. That the weather's definitely going to dictate it. I got to tell you, years ago when there were good mullet runs, and I don't mean just having mullet, but I mean having striped bass on mullet.
Yeah.
Uh, if you got a good hard northeast blow anytime after or September 15th, ooh, that could set up some good fishing. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
And I
just don't see that much anymore. Yeah.
no, but it does go longer though. The season does go longer as far as I'm concerned. The fall run, remember they used to start New Jersey was always, the end of September. And then it became the week before Halloween, then became Halloween, and then it became 2 weeks after Halloween. And now you're fishing up in the backwaters, you're fishing for them all the way up until they close it on December 31st.
No.
And you're still catching. There are guys that they wait all year for it. And they fish so much that these guys never should. I mean, that's all that they're focused on. And they get exhausted. and they're like, but we still have 2 weeks left, and I can't believe I have to keep
Yeah.
going. I can't
Yeah.
believe I have to keep going. I'm not going again. And then they're going again that night at 2 a.m. because they heard the bite 20 miles up the beach, and now they're heading up there. But
Yeah, well, it's a long winter, when you're up here. Your winter in South Jersey's certainly shorter than here, but
yeah,
I can tell you our winter is a solid 5 months
yeah.
up here. So, yeah.
And you're going to be down fishing for the tarpon again and everything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to looking at those. So I'm like everybody else up here. You got to find the people that you can follow that are also going to be fishing when we're not. When I'm just sitting in there, putting new braid on every reel just because I have nothing else to do, and then I can watch somebody. I mean, some of your tarpon videos were amazing. When you first got that autopilot, there was one video that I recall that you were just slamming them, and it seemed like you might have been a little surprised at just how well you were doing.
well, I can tell you every single tarpon hit is a surprise.
Yeah,
Every single one. I mean, because it's so I throw one lure. It's the 5-inch Zoom Fluke, 5.5 inch, whatever it is, 1/8 ounce swim bait hook, Gamakatsu 4.0, and just an erratic motion. And they're a very hard fish to get to hit.
yeah,
And if I'm in the presence of them where I see some rising, I really have full confidence that I put in some time, I'm going to get one of those things to hit. But when the hit does come, I'm never anticipating the hit. It's just you're working at it. I'm determined. I know if I put my time in, I'm going to hook one of those damn things.
right.
But when it happens, it's just
Startling.
mayhem, because within seconds that thing is in the air. I mean, when you've got a 6-foot fish, and that's not an exaggeration, some of them are that big, jumping 4 or 5 feet up in the air, and that's not an exaggeration either. They do that, and you're sitting in your kayak, and 5 seconds ago, you'd been out for 3 hours. At that point, you haven't had a touch. The next thing you know, you've got that thing in the air. I mean, it's nothing like it. Yeah,
It's mayhem. Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
Those are some of my favorite videos of yours, and
You can tell that's where you'll see me get the most excited. You can see I'm getting excited now, right? Yeah, that's when I get the most excited.
I'm looking forward to those. Yeah, I'm looking forward to those. That's a species I've never been able to target. It's one that I definitely want to target. That bonefish and some of these Florida things, but I just think it's awesome. Every time I watch a good tarpon video, I'm amazed. Bow to the king. Oh yeah, you better, because those things go crazy when they're out of that water.
Yeah. So actually, I don't bow. By the way,
I noticed you don't, but
I don't, and I survived. I don't know how many fish that was. That probably over 6 or 7 fish. Anyway, I survived over 40 jumps in a row. When you consider, one after another. I mean, I lose them other ways. Maybe the hook pulled, or they broke me off on a bridge, or God knows, they broke the leader. There's a good good way to lose them. But as far as the actual jumps and throwing the hook, I survived over 40 jumps in a row across several trips, and I don't bow. I'm not going to bow.
No,
I mean, not because those percentages are very good, and a lot of it comes down to the fact that I'm using a swim bait hook and not a jig head, because a jig head, all that weight is forward. They get that when they go up in the air, and they get that leverage, and they shake that thing. That's when they can throw it. But with a swim bait hook, then the weight is distributed more evenly, and they don't throw a swim bait hook as easily as they do a jig head.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Never thought about that. I thought about the leverage with a lot of other situations, but I haven't thought about it for that.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's a very light payload. I mean, if you consider the jerk shad and the swim bait hook, probably in total is 1/4 ounce.
Yeah,
which is why I'm throwing fairly light tackle. The people down there, they're all these bait guys, and fish heavy gear with chunks of mullet. I'm not a chunker. I don't bait fish, and I'm not gonna. You can't throw a 1/4 ounce payload on a heavy outfit with 50-pound test line.
No,
You
it
know,
goes
I
nowhere.
have gotten it to the point where, all right, I can fish 30 and I can fish a 50 liter, but I've caught quite a few of them on 20 with a 40 liter. But I tried to beef it up a little this year and go 30-pound mainline, 50 liter. But yeah,
It seems like a
that's
good balance. I mean, 30, yeah, 30, you're still going to be
it's
able to get it out
yeah.
there.
Yeah, you will, but again, on that light lure, are you killing the action with the 50? You know, with the 50 liter? You know,
Probably a little
I
bit.
think the answer, yeah, it might be a little bit. I hooked enough of them this past season with that setup to think that I'm probably okay. I got to tell you, my landing percentage though with the 20 and the 40 is better than with the 30 and the 50 for whatever reason. They seem to
Really?
have gone through that 50, chafed through the 50. Probably, I don't know, maybe because it's more, I don't know, I have more tension on it. I don't know.
Are you
They've
using
gone through
mono
that
or fluoro?
fluoro, cigar blue, yeah,
Yeah.
or cigar inshore actually, yeah.
Just try the mono. Apparently, it actually is better at abrasion
I
resistance.
don't believe that. I don't buy it. I know exactly what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and I don't buy it. Too many decades on those jetties with big striped bass, and
Yeah.
I use both because I really like trilene big game for leader material for striped bass, and green actually. Like if I'm casting striped bass in Long Island Sound, the green is that green trilene X big game is very good. But on the rocks, in the jetty rocks, I found that the fluoro really did a lot better of holding up to, dealing with fish in the rocks. So yeah, nobody's going to shake me from that belief. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have the experience. You know what works for you.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. I mean, there's
sure.
no reason to change if it's working, right? Unless you're unhappy with your current results. And if you are, I just want to be you for a day because I would be ecstatic with them. So, yeah, John, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. As I had mentioned, you are by far the most requested guest, and it was great to sit down and talk to you and just hear a little bit about it. Hear about the neighbor that murdered somebody.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hopefully they disclosed that when they sold that house, but I guess they didn't.
Those people were pretty surprised.
I think you're supposed to disclose. I should
Yeah.
know
Oh, I think you. That's right. You're a real estate guy. You would
Yeah.
know about that. Yeah.
I think that qualifies as something that you have to disclose, but yeah, uneven garage. All right. Well, at least your spidey senses kicked in and you got off that beach that day. Thank you again for coming on. I appreciate it. Everybody in the chat, thanks for tuning in. Everyone that's joining after on the podcast, I appreciate it. Remember, if you found this at all entertaining, any good information that you got, it would be great if you just kind of leave a thumbs up, a like, a follow on the podcast. It really helps us to reach more people. And honestly, now John didn't do this, but a lot of guests say, well, how many people watch and listen? Because if it's not enough, I'm not coming on. I won't mention names of people that have done that, but it's actually some of the smaller guys do that. But it does help us to get more guests on. So do that if you could. And despite the heat, everybody, I'm going to be getting out on the water this week. So hopefully you do too. So until next week, until the next episode, get out there, get on the waters, and get some tight lines.